This is a good segue into the next question, which basically has to do with discipline. That's something I struggle with. That's something everyone I know struggles with. And one of the reasons I struggle with it so much personally is because it's so hard to find a good example of discipline around myself and around a lot of people. Everywhere you look, you can easily see undisciplined behavior in people. Undisciplined in terms of how they eat, undisciplined in how they work out, undisciplined in so many factors of life. So since you have lived the warrior's life for quite a while, what role do you think discipline plays in being a man and in being a warrior?
So there's a couple of different types of discipline. There's enforced discipline and self-discipline. The good thing about the military is that you have a glide path of enforced discipline where you start off by making your bed with hospital corners, polishing your boots, polishing your brass, cleaning your weapon. If you don't do those things, there's a second order effect. Your bed gets stripped and thrown out into the hallway. Your boots get scuffed. Your rifle gets thrown out of the window. You do runs around the oval with it, above your head. So guess what? You slowly build self-discipline, because if you don't, there's a reaction. And then what happens is the enforced discipline through the basic training starts to disappear. It has to disappear at some point because they want you to show the self-discipline that's required in your military life and in combat. The thing with the self-discipline in combat is if you don't have it, if you have a dirty weapon, if you don't get up in the morning and have all your stuff squared away and you've got to get on a helicopter and go onto a mission, you don't have everything done, people get killed. So the enforced discipline is something that you can actually replicate yourself. You can build enforced discipline by having a treat reward culture. If I don't get up in the morning and make my bed as soon as I get up, then I'm not allowed to have a coffee until 9 o'clock. Simple. Do that. Have that down as a mantra. And then what happens is you get up and you make your bed and you go, guess what? As soon as I get up, I can go to Starbucks and have a coffee now. So you've created an enforced discipline for yourself. And slowly over time, you can create your own enforced discipline with a reward or a non-reward strategy, and then you build self-discipline. Now, there's a whole heap of theories around having a reservoir of discipline, and you can only use so much in such a day. I don't believe that for a minute. I know the science backs it, but humans can overwhelm that. You can overcome that. It's your brain can overcome that. You talk to any of the Navy SEALs, and they will tell you there's no such thing as a reservoir of discipline. It's just discipline.
Yeah, you're talking about like willpower.
They get up at 4:30 in the morning and they go work out. They work out at 4:30 in the morning because you're not working out at 4:30 in the morning. That's what makes them good.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the unit that I came from 2 Commando Regiment. The guys get up early and they do an extra hour of training in the morning because other units aren't doing it. So you build the enforced discipline. You work through that. The self-discipline comes. As soon as you have self-discipline in everything you do, you can look at an option and go, I need to take the hard right over the easy wrong. So there's a reason, and I'm actually writing a blog at the moment about habits. There's a reason that alcoholism and drug addiction is so destructive. And it's because people are addicted to it, but they're addicted because it's a habit. So what you have to do is build good habits. If you build good habits, you don't need as much self-discipline. Do you see what the link between the two? So if I get up every morning and before I even go to the bathroom, if I make my bed, that's a habit. And you get to the point where you've done it 10,000 times over however many years, and suddenly you won't be able to walk into the bathroom without making that bed because you just won't let yourself. You will feel like something's not completed, so you will do it. So good habits, building good habits leads to more self-discipline because you don't need to be as disciplined. You've got good habits. And then when you come to an option of a hard right over an easy wrong, you'll go, I'll take the hard right, thanks, because it's the right thing to do.
That's so interesting that you mentioned the especially the part about the research on the limited discipline reservoir. It's interesting because I have a book about that. It's called, I think it's called Willpower. And
Right.
the whole book is exactly what you were saying. A lot of it was based on how, like, glucose in your brain, when you have a lot of it, equals a high degree of willpower and a high degree of discipline. And when you exert yourself too much, you sort of deplete it, and therefore you're not as likely to be disciplined, or you're not as likely to follow through on a hard task. So you're not the first person. You're actually the second person I've heard say that you think it's bullshit. Like, the other person I heard say that was, I don't know if you're familiar with Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that too, and I'm like, that's so interesting because.
And I bet you his diet and my diet are pretty similar too.
Yeah.
Which again, a lot of these things, like this book, for instance, it's trying to answer a really difficult question with a reductionist theory. But there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. So the reservoir, it might exist for most people that have a high sugar intake, you know.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. There's so many variables to it. All I know is that the human mind can be trained to be really strong. I've seen so many people through adversity. When I was the officer in charge of Selection Wing, Special Forces in Australia, I've seen people who make hard decisions every day under sleep fatigue and under diet fatigue because they know they're the right decisions to make, and they're disciplined. And they don't have the option to make a bad decision because their reservoir's low at 2 o'clock in the morning when they haven't slept for 72 hours. Because guess what? Every reservoir they own is low. Yeah, and anything Jocko says is true. So there you go.
Yeah, no, that's very powerful, because a lot of people that are familiar with that book and familiar with that theory kind of give themselves an excuse to not be disciplined because of it, because they think, oh, you know, I spent the day doing X, Y, and Z, and now I can't do this. But it's like, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And
I think you can go the other way with it too, Matt. I think you can pull into the service station, see that chocolate muffin, and go, I should eat that chocolate muffin because I might need to make a really complex decision later.
Right.
You know, and I don't want to deplete my reservoir. But you know what? I don't have a reservoir, so I'm probably not going to eat that muffin. You know, let's just not do it. Like, it works both ways as well. Know that it's not true, and know that actually what's happening is you're having a stimulus response. You're looking at something and you want to eat it. But if you don't eat it, the benefits are so much better.